And we are live, on air, live and direct from the Tropen Institute in Amsterdam. Welcome everyone. There's 35 people attending at the moment. The number is going up, so we'll give it a few more minutes as internet norms dictate. In Holland, there's a student's quarter, like 15 minutes of accepted lateness, and then it starts. But we'll make it 3 minutes or something. Maybe already some practical messaging. We will have a Q&A at the end of this webinar, and the questions for that Q&A can be collected in the chat, which is on my right-hand side in the webinar software. Yeah, Balvindar has already found it. Good evening, Balvindar. So that's where questions will be collected for the Q&A. There's Shanna. She'll be moderating the chat. Okay. Thank you all for coming, for joining this webinar, which is the first of a series of Trace talks, following up on our launch last April. And the topic of today's webinar that we're organizing with our launching partner Verstegen is the added value of Trace. And what we'll be doing in the next hour is take you through the what, why, and how of the added value through Trace. So I'll be talking about what added value is in our perspective, which versions of it there are, after which Marianne van Keep of Verstegen will discuss why Verstegen uses Trace to add these values. And then to top it off, our Trace's product owner, Derek Hardwick, will show you some of the practical components of this. Roughly, this will take us into the 35th minute or maybe 40th, after which we'll have about 20 minutes to do a Q&A. And as I said before, questions for the Q&A can be put in the chat on your right side, and Shanna will be sifting through these for the Q&A. If we can't manage to answer all the questions, then we'll follow up with an email in which we'll try to do just that. Okay, so much for practicalities. Let's begin. And every conversation we have within Fairfood, so Trace talks included, start with food. We are Fairfood, and Verstegen is a food company. We do this for the love of food, and not only for the love of tasty, good-looking food that we can cook with. We do this for the love of good food in an ethical sense. We like our food to be produced sustainably, meaning that it is good not only for us as a consumer, but also good for the planet and good for the people who make it. And finding out how good that food is starts not here. It doesn't start on your plate or on your fork. It starts with the farmer and the farm. And the journey we'll be taking today is the nutmeg journey, which starts as a nutmeg fruit on a tree. In our case, here in Sangihe Island in Indonesia, where this fruit is produced in an agroforestry setting. It is organically produced by someone, right? The food doesn't only have a carbon footprint, it has a fingerprint, quite literally. of the people behind it. And in this case, this nutmeg is harvested by its farmer, Pariandi. And he has a story. Yeah, it's not an anonymous person. It's a person with a name, and he has kids, and he has an income, and he has hopes and dreams that we hope to realize through making nutmegs. When Pariandi collects these nutmegs, he cracks them open, and out comes this marvelous red shiny thing. Right? Look at that thing. It's a beautiful product, nutmeg, with its mace wrapped around it. And look at those hands. If you see those hands, you know there goes a lot of work into this. The nutmegs that Pariandi collects and cracks open, he puts in a bag and offers them to the purchaser, who drives around the island with his weighing scale. He weighs those bags of fruits and pays out to Pariandi on the spot, in cash, with a physical handshake to top it off. This is business as usual. No digital Trace yet, but what Trace does is make a digital twin of what's happening in the physical world. So as soon as the purchaser goes back to the factory, this is where he opens up his Trace application and enters the transaction that he just made. Pariandi, 27 kilograms of nutmeg, after which he submits it to the system, and boom, a trigger is sent to Pariandi. So this is where he, for the first time in his life, can anonymously verify whether this took place as the supply chain mentioned. So here we start seeing some of the added values. We'll get back to this, but this is how Trace works. When Pariandi has confirmed the transaction, on goes the process of making nutmegs from raw. So the mace needs to be peeled off, then the nuts need to be dried and cracked and selected, because you want to have the round ones and not the broken ones. You want the active water percentage to be really low, and the aflatoxin level to be really low, so the product becomes tested, after which it's packaged, weighted in storage, and all these conversions from raw to dry to selected, and transactions from Pariandi to the purchaser, to the exporter, etc. All these transactions and conversions are registered in Trace, and they have a digital twin that is accessible through a thing like a QR code or NFC tag or whatever means we think fits your use case best. Now, of course, the Trace doesn't end there. The bags are put into containers and are shipped off to Rotterdam, where the company called Verstegen packages them, and there we are. What Trace adds here is, and it's symbolized in that QR code, is the whole product story. You can see where it came from, which claims it picked up along the way, what the carbon footprint was, and what the human fingerprint behind this product is. Now, I think that shows you already some of the values that Trace can add, but what are we talking about in essence? I think this picture does show that essence. What do you think is worth more? What has more value? A product with a trace, a story, a proof of it being sustainable behind it, or a product without? And I think we can all intuitively feel that the former is most valuable. But the purpose of this talk is to find out what is that added value, and to show the width and the variety of values that can be added through such a system. I'll take you through some of the the types of values. Huh? I think it's clear that Trace and a system like this can add to storytelling, marketing, story proofing. Even if you log things on a blockchain like we do with the proof attached to it, you create a decentralized, trustworthy layer of proof. So it's story proofing more than storytelling even. But more fundamentally, the fact that we ask Marianne to verify or falsify claims that are made about his product is very fundamental. It's inclusion by design, and we as Fairfood think this is a really important step to take in global supply chains. Clearly, what's in it for me? How much does it earn me? Well, we see in the past projects that we've done and in the ones that we're going to do a clear value add in monetary sense. We see percentages being added to the retail price and being paid by consumers and clients. And we, with Trace, can channel that added value straight into the farmer's pocket. Clear monetary added value. Of course, companies like Verstegen are worried about quality, food safety, the proofs of which can be logged in a system like Trace. And before you can put that container with nutmegs on the quay of Rotterdam, you better get it through customs. And if you can do that now without a traceability system, in the future you can't. Traceability is here to stay. Human rights due diligence is here to stay. And we think, forward-looking companies better prepare for this becoming regulated. Last one, before I hand it off to Marianne. More money and more marketing value, those are all nice external value adds, but some companies like Verstegen are doing this for a more basic reason. It is their mission, their identity to leave this world in a better place in the future. So to future-proof themselves, companies like Verstegen use these systems. But before I, as they say in Dutch, maai al het gras onder je voeten vandaan, to take all your marbles out of your mouth, here's Marianne van Keep to tell you why Trace adds value for Verstegen.
Yes, the why. Important, of course, the why. But first, let me take you to a little bit of history and tell you a little bit about Verstegen. As you can see, it's a Verstegen spices and sauces. We make all kind of spices and all kind of sauces, marinades. And we are a family business based in Rotterdam. And we are founded in 1886. And at this moment, we have the 4th generation who is owner of this beautiful company in Rotterdam. And that is maybe one of the most important things being a family business, that is really, really important for our owner, that he can hand over this nice company in a couple of years to one of his children. Not only that, it's not his children, but it's also my grandchildren and your children and the children and grandchildren of everybody involved in the supply chain. And that's, I guess, the most important things for Verstegen. So when you talk about purpose, that's it. How this responsibility that we have for future generations. And it brings me to my to our ambitions. We have 2 major ambitions. One of them is that we want to be climate positive. That means that, of course, we do our utmost to reduce the use of energy. We use wind energy, solar energy, but also in our supply chain, we look at all kind of ways to reduce the impact that humanity has on the world, on Earth. That's one of our big ambitions. The other ambition is that we want to see our farmers as entrepreneurs. It is not just simply giving them a bag of money. It's much more giving them knowledge, because with knowledge you get so much faster and further away than with plain simple money. And it doesn't mean that money is not important, and I'll take you to that later on. So that are our two big ambitions. And so how do we intend to reach those big ambitions? First of all, let me say that we're just on the beginning of our journey. It's a journey, and we know it will take us a long time. We will not be finished in 2025 or 2030. We will really, really work on it for a long time. But starting this journey and doing this journey all together is so much rewarding. And for me personally, I have one social issue, which is really important for me, and that is child labor. There's still too much child labor. I believe there's about 125 million children younger than 14 years who are working, and that was pre-corona. Probably in these last few months, those figures are increasing again. So my personal ambition is to work on child labor, and that's something that's not only for Verstegen but the whole spice industry. So I'm putting that on the international spice agenda. For Verstegen, child labor is important, living wage is important, living income is important, and because all those things are part of that farmer as an entrepreneur. And if we want to pass knowledge to that farmer, then we need to have a transparent supply chain. And that comes in our cooperation with Fairfood, because Fairfood and Verstegen, we started talking together about living income a couple of years ago, and then we discovered that we had, in fact, more or less the same ambitions, which is quite special. We being a business, them being an NGO, but we really felt strongly that we had the same goal. And transparency is the instrument. And for us, it's an alternative for certification. Certification, it's handy in the beginning, but once that you are certified, transparency is much more important. And transparency means traceability. And traceability, in our case means trace. In the Trace platform, we have the idea that we can make all our supply chains, we can include them. And by including them, we can giving knowledge, and we can use technology, because we strongly believe that nowadays there's so many nice, innovative ways that you can increase your income, that you can increase your the yields of what you are doing by using new methodology like blockchain, for example. Or in our case, one of the big programs that we have is our Spice Up program, where we use geodata to inform farmers and to include farmers in our process. And the nice thing about the programs that we did together with Fairfood is that we know these farmers. We didn't know them yet, because we talk with some kind of the processor exporters, and they talk with the collectors, but nobody was talking with those farmers. And now we started talking with those farmers. So we know the names. We know the name of Riandi, but we know the name of a lot of more of those farmers. And not only that, they know us. And that's also really rewarding. But they hadn't had a clue what happened with the products that they made, and now they know. So we started with Trace, and our intention is to put all our supply chains in that system, in that platform. We already have 20 of the supply chains. We know already about 40 or 50 of our suppliers, and the suppliers of the suppliers. And the idea is that in the end, all those farmers are located in that platform. And that we can add all kind of things. We can add the certificates, we can add the trainings that they had. We can add information about the living incomes that they have, and we can also see where are the risks, where are the white spots, where are the issues that we have to deal with. So we're really pleased with this platform, and it makes also very visual. And well, nowadays everybody likes it when it's more visual, when you can really dive into it. And that is what Trace is offering to us. So we started this journey together with Fairfood a couple of years ago. And well, what did it bring us? Already a lot of exposure, for example. We were pretty, I think, thought leader, no, not thought leaders. We were the first starting really with blockchain. So we gained a lot of attention from all kind of media. But the nice thing is also that it creates, when Martin talks about inclusion of the farmer, but it's also inclusion of the consumer. It's also inclusion of all the colleagues that work here at Verstegen, because now we become all part of this supply chain, because it's all now much closer to us than we ever thought it would be. We guess that in the end we will gain a lot in efficiency, for example, that we will shorten our supply chain, so being much closer to that farmer. But we have a lot of challenges. It will not be easy. What we discover now, that a lot of our suppliers say, why should I tell you who my suppliers are? What are you going to do with that knowledge? So you have to start dialogue with them. You have to explain to them how important it is. Personally, I'm convinced that transparency is the future. In a couple of years now, we will not have this discussion anymore. It will be logic. Everything is transparent. But we have to explain that to our suppliers. We have to make them partners. We have to make the relation much closer than it ever has been. But that is really, it's fun to do, because it's, like I told you, it's so rewarding. And so, well, this is my message to you. Transparency is here to stay, and it gives you so much. Work on it, and Trace is a nice instrument to achieve this. And I give back the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Not only for being so candid about the whys of Trace, but also for being an early adopter of this idea. Everybody needs a break to get things off the ground, and it was Verstegen who gave us that break. But moving on. Because we're on a journey, and we need to reach some impact and show you guys how things work. So here to show you how things work within Trace, I will hand over not only the word but the camera at a safe 1.5 meter distance to my colleague Derek.
Hi, thanks, Martin. Situated here. So yeah, now we come to the how. How does Trace actually add value on a practical level? For us, as Martin mentioned earlier, we see really three key areas where transparency projects can add value for consumers, for companies, and also for, of course, the farmers. For consumers, we see that consumers are becoming more sophisticated. They really want a connection to their products. They want to know that their product is good, not only in quality and for them, but also for people and for the planet. And because of that, we have created a rich storytelling interface for all of the products that flow through the Trace platform. This can be accessed, as Martin showed, through a QR code or through a link that's shared online. It can be bound to the product as it moves through the supply chain, but of course, where it's really interesting for consumers is when it's on pack. This gives them a direct connection between the product that they're holding on their hand and the story behind that product. Most importantly, it transforms the farmers from being some anonymous person or group of people that are in a far away country to being a real person with a real story. And in the case of this Traboco project, as you're seeing here, we have actual images of the farmers and some personal notes about them. Of course, you can always see the nitty-gritty details, all of the individual data points about where the product came from and how it was transformed as it went through the supply chain and who was involved, etc. This data is all very interesting, but really the story behind the data is what we think adds value to consumers. Of course, consumers don't just want to know about the claims that are being made about the product. We support adding all sorts of claims through our claim library in the Trace system, and of course we develop custom claims with companies and our partners that we work with. These claims can be, of course, where did the product come from, what is the quality of the product, but they can also be social and environmental claims like organic, or in this case, good price. Consumers are smart, they want to know what does that mean. They can dive deep into this information and see what does actually a good price mean for this particular product. They can dig into the evidence. How is this backed up? And of course, this whole storytelling interface is backed by blockchain traceability, which means that there's been digital handshakes on all of the information that's been put into the system, and people are accountable for what they say happened to this problem. And of course, it's possible to dive more deep into what exactly happened to this product in origin. How many farmers were involved in the cup of coffee or bar of chocolate that I'm holding in my hand? What is the story about this particular product itself as it moves through the supply chain? So for companies, obviously, the consumer interface also has a clear marketing value add. It's available. It's possible to skin this interface and add branding and all sorts, enrich this site with details like photos and video, social media accounts, and so on and so forth. And we really feel that this adds a large value to consumer-facing organizations. But this isn't just for consumer-facing organizations. This is available for all of the actors in the supply chain, meaning that also B2B organizations can be involved in a project, make claims about their products, and reach out to their customers and say, hey, here's a product, here's a link for this product about where it comes from and all of this interesting information, and you can also make this available to your consumers. And we think that that's a major value add for also the B2B actors, not just the B2C actors. But of course, such a project like this, or such an interface, a rich storytelling interface, doesn't just fall out of the sky. It starts with a project to make the supply chain transparent. In some cases, many companies have a very clear vision for a particular product or a particular value stream. This is where I want to start. I want to start with this project in this origin, and this is the story I want to tell. But more often, it's the case of how do I get started? What claims can I make? Which chains or streams or origins should I focus on or write for such a project? And we noticed at Fairfood that we really needed to make some additional tools to help these projects get off the ground. One way in which we do this is we allow companies to simply take the information that they already have about their supply chain, their customers and their suppliers, and simply put this on a map. Start drawing, can also be imported via Excel, everything that you already know about your supply chain, who the actors are, where they are, your relationships, etc. Many organizations also know about their suppliers already. Some of them know for certain value chains all the way down to origin. They have some farmer information. They have organizations that are working on the ground. All of that can be brought in. At that point, these organizations that have been mapped can be invited to participate. and transparency requests can be sent to them. Of course, there's an offline component to this of getting the project rolling and explaining, as Marianne said, the importance and the direction that we're all trying to go with these projects. But more concretely, within the system, transparency requests can be sent between companies. This can be about basic information, where are you, is this information correct, is your contact information accurate, what's your Chamber of Commerce number, all of these basic things. But it can also include much more relevant information, such as, do you participate in any social or environmental schemes, like, for example, organic? Have you recently had a chain of custody audit for a particular scheme? Do you have your own internal corporate social responsibility policy? Would you like to share that? And also about relationships between actors. So it could be that an organization requires their suppliers to sign a code of conduct. Is that signed? Is that accurate? Can that be put into the system? Once we've collected all of this data as much as we can, this can all happen before actual transactions have to start taking place in the system. We provide a dashboard, not just a dashboard to the individual, to the company that's initiating the project, but also to everyone everyone who's participating. On this dashboard, we can see information about change before we get these projects rolling. For example, is this a farmer-heavy chain? Is this a very complex chain? Are farmers spread across a large geographical area, or are they located clumped together in particular regions? We can see how many tiers there are. We can see how long the average chain lengths are. And we can give, like I said, a complexity score to these chains. All of that information that we also collect about the individual companies, the schemes they participate in, their positions, etc., can also be collected as claims and displayed. And in this way, we give companies the ability to make smart decisions about which chains to focus on when starting a transparency project. Are there things that are ready to go, where we have great stories, all of the participants in the supply chain are actively participating and ready to give us information, and we can start including this and enriching our product with this data right away? Or are there areas where we need to shine a spotlight on or get people more motivated to share? What incentives do we need to create? And also claims can, of course, be developed based on all of this information. Who is going to be providing what information when? What evidence is going to be supplied? And in addition to the normal transparency traceability component of it, we see that there's also an opportunity here for regulatory compliance and assurance purposes in collecting this information. Finally, and most importantly, the value add for farmers. Farmers, like every other actor in the system, also get a digital identity. And with this digital identity, they can enrich their product with information, just as all the other actors in the supply chain are enriching their product with information and adding value and profiting from that value. What kind of information could be enriched? Well, again, basic information for sure, but also which production practices are being used. Are they up to date with the most modern ways of production for their products? How much are they producing? How much are they paid critically for what they're producing? We can also collect information, household information from them and other sources of income that can be used to raise the bar for the prices that are paid to them and the premiums that are paid to them. Most importantly, they can verify that the information that's said about them is correct, as Martin demonstrated in the Nutmeg case in Indonesia. We're able to actually send SMSs to people, text messages, and get a response to find out were you actually paid this price. And that gives them the opportunity and a voice to raise issues if that's not the case. Additionally, we can give them up-chain visibility, so information about their customers and their customers' customers. And of course, they get a digital record of all the transactions that have taken place. Not just a stack of receipts that they keep at their house, but a real digital record that's stored in the platform with information about how important the supply chain that they're participating in is. We think that this creates some opportunities for example, giving them, allowing them to provide this information to, for example, financial lenders, and getting them better access to finance by being able to demonstrate, here's a digital record of all my transactions for the past few Crucially, blockchain also is unique in the sense that, as Martin said, we give all of the products in the system a digital twin, and we use the blockchain technology to provide traceability services and follow products as they move through the supply chain. But this wallet that everyone gets is also possible to be used for currency. And this allows us the potential of actually putting money in the pocket of a farmer via virtual currencies. This allows us to actually compensate them for the information that they provide. Now, what could that look like? Well, there's many different ways, and every supply chain is a bit unique. One could be, for example, providing information after the fact. So a producer brings his product to the market, he gets paid for it, and later he gets a request online or via text message to enrich that with some additional information. At that point, we can compensate him digitally for that, and the next time he goes to drop off his product at market, he can cash out that digital currency. It also allows us to run experiments. For example, for a particular supply chain, if we're not sure exactly how much value can be added by certain claims or certain initiatives, we can run those experiments, and the producer can bring his product to market. It can go through the chain, and when we determine at the end of the chain that yes, companies and consumers are willing to pay more for this, we can compensate the farmer directly with a digital currency that can again be cashed out. And that value doesn't need to make its way all the way back through all the actors in the supply chain. It can be a one-to-one connection from someone at the end of the supply chain to someone at the beginning of the supply chain, the farmer. Of course, we're not naive about the challenges for this. Certain supply chains and areas it can be much easier to implement these schemes than other areas, but we're also not naive about the impact of innovative technologies like blockchain to transform the role of farmers and also transform how other actors in the supply chain interact with farmers. On that note, I'll turn it back over to Martin in a safe way for the Q&A.
Thank you, Derek. A lot of questions have been raised. That is always a good sign. And what I think we'll try to do in the coming 20 minutes is to answer a selection of them. I have 7 questions in front of me. Let's try to work our way through those first, and then see if we can answer more. Again, the questions that we can't answer now will be answered in a follow-up email if necessary. And to Derek and to Marianne, please feel free to raise your hand or jump in to answer these questions, because they're posed to all of us. Let me read out the question first, and then see how we answer it. Here's a question from, I believe it's Marta. How do you make sure the added value ends up in the right hands? And I thought I could answer this by first assuming that the right hands are the hands of the one who contributes most to the added value, right? And I'm sure we all want to know about the farmer. So let's take the example of Pariandi, who does work to verify a claim about a price. He needs to have a phone, he needs to have a working SIM card, he needs to sit down and actually do something, right? I think it's right to pay him for that. And then how do we make sure he gets paid for that becomes a little bit technical, but what we do is as you see right in front of you, we give Pariandi a wallet in which he can receive data token. Or verification token. I think that's one first step to create a digital twin of that value, and a token would be a way to do that. And to take it even further, a token can also be an actual carrier of value, such as a Bitcoin or tethered coin, right? We don't want to make farmers into Bitcoin investors, so we are inclined to give them tether, which is basically digital dollars or euros. So important to mention here is that we can do this directly. So as Derek mentioned, we don't always know what the added value is, but once we do, for instance, by seeing cash come in at the retail end, we can capture and channel that money straight and borderless and without time constraints into the wallet of these farmers, so nobody else gets their hands on them. And now how does the farmer get them out of his wallet? Well, I think the fingerprint that he has on his hand serves as a key for that. So biometric authentication is I think a good way to move forward. If that's not an option, a PIN code, or as many people do in Kenya, for instance, simply your phone number would allow you to receive funds via M-Pesa, for instance. I think that sufficiently answers the first question. Maybe the second one would be for Derek or for Marianne. I'm curious to learn how Trace might contribute to circularity and sustainability agendas for businesses. I work in this I work in this area at the University of Exeter. So maybe Marianne, how might Trace contribute to sustainability agendas for businesses?
Well, how it contributes to the agenda, that's pretty clear. Becoming transparent opens up the whole world and all the issues there. And once you know the issues, they are on the agenda. Circularity in the food industry is a more complicated issue. But I guess that once that we have that supply chain transparent and all the actors know their role in that supply chain, you can start talking much more about efficiency and therefore also start talking about how can you use a much broader way the products. But to be honest, in Indonesia, circularity is there and has always been there. You can trust the Indonesian people, and I guess all the farmers all over the world, they don't throw away anything. Everything is being used. The problem about circularity is much more in our worlds, and that's not a problem in the supply chain. It's much more a problem in the way that we treat food and the way we don't value what we have as we should. I hope that's answer to your question.
Thank you, Marianne. Next question comes from Martin Bona. I really like the question. It's a really relevant one. Does the Trace tool, with all its in and outs, make the nutmeg more expensive since it is traceable and sustainably traded? Do you want it, Derek?
No, you can take it.
I'll take it. I think an honest and clear answer is yes, and an honest and clear answer is no. If you're raising prices, then you might claim it becomes more expensive. You might also say that if the product becomes more valuable, then it would warrant a higher price. But what we've shown also is how Trace can make sure that product ends up in your hand at all, right? The regulation components of it, the food safety components of it. So these are cost reduction ads. So yes, it may make a product more expensive if the supply chain decides this value should be monetized. But if that's true, then it's also true that it makes the product less costly in its production or in its risk management. So this knife cuts both ways. Next question. Do B2B companies not worry that their customer will go around them to the supplier or farmer directly? That's yours, Derek.
Yeah, sure. So I've not only done quite some work on Trace, I've also done a lot of work on other traceability projects in the past. And absolutely, that is a concern that's expressed very frequently. Of course, as Marianne mentioned, trust is very important. And providing information about your supply chain is a value add, not only for people at the end of the supply chain that are consumer facing, but also for everyone in the supply chain. So we hope to really be able to demonstrate to everyone in the supply chain that participating in this way is beneficial to them and adds value to them as well. Not just with maybe the customer relationship that is asking for this information, but also with other customer relationships. We also, also in my experience, once people see another chain or where this is happening, then they believe it. And so sometimes it takes a little while to get the snowball rolling, but once it gets rolling, it really gets visible. This is especially true in origin. A lot of people can be skeptical, farmers especially, very conservative bunch of people. Their money's on the line for trying experiments. But also other people in origin can be very skeptical of new technologies or new ways of working. But when they see that their neighbor's doing it and profiting from it, then that's a much easier sell. So I hope that answers the question a bit.
Well, no, I think it does, Derek. But I was also curious how we technically prevent chain actors to know who know where to go to, anonymization, etc.
Sure. So when mapping supply chains, like I said, actors put in all of the information that they already know about their supply chain. So if you know who your suppliers are and you know who your suppliers are, of course you can ask them to provide some additional information, and it's all very clear and transparent. But in the case of mapping a chain, really getting a project rolling, it's also possible for me to add information about my supplier and for that supplier to add information about his supplier. And in that case, we anonymize the information. We say pseudonymize sometimes. We show some bits of the information, but maybe not all of the bits of the information. This allows transparency requests to be sent within the system and information to be gathered within the system without everyone necessarily making everything available, without everyone really opening up all of their information until there is that needed trust that's built up, and that it's clear that their customers see a value in this and are willing to maybe compensate that, or that this is maybe a requirement of doing business with us. So we definitely protect the private information of companies, and we also make it possible for companies to say, nope, this is fine. Make my information publicly visible for this particular supply chain. Also,
can I add something, Derek?
Sure.
Because that is a discussion that we had within Verstegen as well, of course. And for me, it's pretty clear that being transparent means that you have to think every time, for every decision, every action that you take, what's your value in that supply chain? And you have to make sure every time that you do it better than the others, because that's what's the ground of your existence. And if you are not better than the others, then maybe you're going to lose it. But transparency means that it's challenging, and it's kind of challenge that we like very much. And if you cannot cope with the challenge, then maybe you should find another way of earning your money.
Very good point.
There you go. One question from Isidora that I like to answer, because we're confronted with it often. What makes blockchain better than other traceability systems? And I think what Fairfood has benefited from and is having trouble with is this confusion between blockchain and traceability. It is not the same thing, right? A blockchain is a decentralized database, and traceability is a whole bunch of activities and systems that have been around for decades and will and may or may not use a decentralized database or a cloud database or Excel sheets, right? So maybe the question that I would answer differently is how can blockchain help traceability systems become better, and that's to untangle both definitions. how blockchains can help is well, supply chain partners, as the previous viewer question made clear, don't always trust each other. And do we as consumers trust all the data about your products to come from the databases of big companies? I think trust is an issue in supply chains, and this is where blockchain can add value and can add trust. It is a decentralized, immutable, and in our case, public ledger of transactions. That should add some trustworthiness, we think. So moving on, we have a few more, 10 more minutes. One for you, Marianne. Is the experience with Trace a reason to apply it for all spices and products Verstegen is working with?
That's our ambition, yes, for sure. And I would have loved to say that we will be ready by the end of the year. It will not be the case, but we have a nice basis now with our 20 most important supply chains. There's a lot of work to do, and but it's like I told you, it's great to do.
Sorry, again, one for Derek. I was wondering how the poorest farmers that may not have a mobile phone can be reached or included, or is having a mobile phone a prerequisite to be included?
Very simply, no. A phone is not the prerequisite to be included in these schemes. We give the farmers a digital identity that can be done. What I like to call the first buyer, the first person who's interacting with the farmer at market, or when the farmer is bringing his product to market. That's the moment where a digital identity is created with for that farmer. When we talk about actually giving compensation to the farmers through digital currencies or giving them a digital wallet or access to that, that can be done in many different ways. Even in the cryptocurrency world with Bitcoin and whatnot, necessarily having your wallet stored on your phone doesn't always work out great. What we can do is indeed give access to that, for example, via phone or SMS, but it can also be a code, challenge and response. It can be a laminated card with a QR code on it. And that is a way that when the farmer brings his product to market, that can be how these transactions can be administered. And later also when he wants to cash out his digital currency, it can be done in that way. So it can be done in that first interaction with the farmer, or in an interaction with a local partner, for example. So a short answer is no, it's not required to have a mobile phone. Of course, in cases, as Martin mentioned, where their mobile phones are common at origin, and there's an established mobile banking system, that makes our lives much easier in getting compensation directly to farmers. But it's possible to do that with very limited technology, or in remote areas where service is not so good.
Thanks, Derek. Let's do two more. We have 5 minutes left. Let's see. Question from Kirsten. Can you tell us something about interoperability, about combining the chains? And interoperability is we hear it often, we say it often. It's not such a easy term to unpack. But what I'm assuming you're wondering is, how does Trace link up to other systems, and specifically other blockchains? Now, let's again take the Pariandi example, where he produces nutmeg. This nutmeg has been certified organic already, and there's a system that logs that data. So let's not do double work. If organic is something we want to show in Trace, then we link up to the database that stores the organic data via XML, via ERP, API, all the abbreviations that you can think of course with the required permissions. But not doing double work is key, especially if you want to work at scale. We're not new at the traceability game. Many great products have preceded us, so let's lean on each other's shoulders to reach farther. The I think more technical question you're asking is, how does Trace link with other blockchains? Well, first of all, Trace is not a blockchain. It works with a blockchain to log its transactions. It can also work with other blockchains. We are blockchain agnostic, so in that sense, we can easily switch between the current blockchain we have, topple, to others such as Hyperledger or Cardano, or you name them. Rafael knows a few more. Of course, if these are Ethereum compliant, ERC20, then there's an easy technical way to do this, and we can also mirror transactions by simply logging them in two blockchains at the same time. We don't really see this question in practice often. We have not been approached yet by clients who want this. We hope to get this question in the future, because it will take us further technically as well. Last question. What are the costs of Trace? What are the costs to trace a supply chain? And there are costs in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of how much you want to test your relationships or how much you want to improve them. Here again, the cost saving aspect is relevant as well. But to be straight, Trace costs €0 for farmers. So all the farmers and food workers who are at the very beginning of the supply chain do not pay for it. We have a small business subscription for Trace, with which you can trace a couple of products in a couple of supply chains with a couple of simple claims, and where the transaction costs on the blockchain are covered for €300 a month. We have, if you've visited our launching webinar, the option for Dutch companies to work with an MVO voucher of €10,000, which would cover much of the implementation and customization of working with Trace. So to be more straight, we think that with an additional 10,000 from your own pocket, we can get Trace up and running for a few of your supply chains. But of course, if you want to go all out, such as Verstegen is doing, at 20 supply chains, multiple claims, and go as far as to work with us to get money in the farmer's pocket, then this is custom. We see most of our work being custom, and that's where we charge non-profit tariffs. But I would invite you, if you have a supply chain that you want to trace, if you feel that you have a good view of where it begins and where it ends, if you are fairly sure what kind of claims you want to verify with this system, then contact us. We think we can get this working with you in due course for this business subscription with IMVO support of €10,000. This does not need to be a huge investment from you. I think roughly 2 man weeks to 1 month in terms of data collection, customization, theming your interfaces to look like they're yours. This should be relatively simple and doable within a month of your time plus our time. We can get this going. I think this is it. We have 1 minute left. Let me use that to thank you for your presence, let me use that to also invite you to our next Trace talk. About 2 months from now, you'll get an invite. You'll also get the answers to the remaining questions via email. And if you want to contact us directly, write to Marianne at Marianne van Keep at Verstegen, or to Derek or me at fairfood.nl. Thank you all. Thank you especially Marianne and Derek, but also thank you to the 60 plus active viewers, and Rafael and Shanna who moderated this. Thanks, guys. Trace you soon. All right. Have a good day.